I need to just remark for both Regent Farrow and others who are new, and many of you have heard me say this, but we do pretty well with undergraduate research and creativity, don't we? We had NCUR here twice in a 5-year span, National Conference on Undergraduate Research, and I'm trying to remember how many people came.
Like 3,500.
3,500 from all around the country. And when U.S. News and World Report just this fall started a new part of its rankings and surveys of universities, they asked the people who fill out those out, which are people like me and presidents and chancellors and admission directors, who are the universities that do a particularly good job at undergraduate research and creative experiences? And they listed 39 institutions. It was just an open-ended question. And we were so proud to see our name on that list alongside Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Madison, UNC, Chapel Hill, Michigan. I mean, some real heavy hitters. So thank you, Scott, for your outstanding leadership, and so many other people in the room who are so passionate about this, because I think that's what got us that Kiplinger's #4 value for schools under $30,000 in the whole country are these kind of things that we provide. So that's exciting. We don't want to get in the way of your program, but it's a real privilege to have Regent Farrow with us. She is a person of great energy because she's going to leave here and go to Eau Claire and visit there and then on to Stout. And so we're glad we're getting you on day one of the trip. But what a great addition to our Board of Regents. And, you'll see the many things that she has done. And I was very impressed at our conversation at lunch to hear that you're also a former teacher. And it's somebody that really wanted to make a difference in her community and said, I need to get involved civically, and actually ran for some offices. And it took a little while. That you sometimes doesn't happen the first time, and you got to come back. And what an outstanding legislative career you've had, and somebody that is very, very passionate about higher education. So we thought, if you anything you would like to ask, Margaret asked me who are the people in the audience, and I said these are some of our most outstanding staff and faculty who are interested in many things that go on the campus, and this is our Institute for Campus Excellence that brings together a lot of areas. But perhaps if you'd like to come up, and we'll have a little bit of dialogue. Unfortunately, I'm probably can't stay past 4:30, but I'm going to hang in there.
He's going to prop me up.
No, you don't need that at all. So let's give Regent Farrow
I'm putting my pencil and pen out. My pen and paper out, because I want to take down any questions you have. As Chancellor Gao knows, and your provost, I didn't look for this job. I left office when the ticket I was on lost in 2003. And then I've been very involved in various civic groups and what have you. My dad raised me with an education business alongside of my liberal arts education, because he was a financial guy for Snap-on Tools. And I sat right up through his retirement years looking at the weekly fund balance he would be sent and the P&L that he'd be looking at. So I feel I've had two exposures to life, two sets of priorities and understandings. And you're right. I was so frustrated that I took my resources and offered them to the voter. And as Abraham Lincoln, I lost my first 2 elections. Then I won 13 and then lost the last one. The ticket lost the last one. But I did not expect to be in this position at this point in my life. I was quilting, musky fishing, and being involved at the local level in community groups. The governor asked me twice, because I turned him down the first time, and said, you've got to take this. I am so grateful to him, because it's put me back in touch. Well, if you had been with me just now, I finally was with 12 students, which is my happiest time to be. And they all got my pitch after I listened to their entrepreneurial plans and the great things they're doing. I gave them the heavy load I always do. You have to stay here. You have to grow our state. You have to vote. You are the future. If they don't do those things, what are we going to be when they're my age? And so I really lay it on them and then threaten to haunt them if they don't vote. So you missed my commercial. So I love the opportunity. I feel like I'm almost back in office without staff or pay. I mean, that isn't the best place to find yourself if you're an ADD person, as I am, and you have to keep all of this organized. So I guess I'm here to really learn more about you. And, I mean, you've got my little list here, and, I mean, you can ask me anything about me, but I'd rather not. I have 5 sons. One surprised me and went to the legislature and is doing a better job in the 33rd Senate District than I did, and I'm proud to just so shocked and proud of him. Shocked that he followed me and proud that he's doing so well. But what do you want me to know? You know, if you could be in my shoes for a day, what would you want to do as chancellor that's feasible? I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to do as chancellor that I've got to work through to find a way. But seriously, you know, I'm learning. I am learning so much. I'm wearing the wrong color. I didn't tell the lunch, did I? I have a friend who has all her kids went to Madison. And so she knew I took this job. And she said, and I'm Marquette, by the way. So I met my husband at Marquette. And I've got daughters-in-law that went to Madison. That's great. So she said, when are you going to start wearing red? And I said, wearing red? Why? And she said, well, Madison. I said, check my list of, you know, the job duties again. I am the system regent. I have, 27 entities. Not Madison. They're one of them. And so I figure there's so many good, strong alumni in everyone with Madison. That's just wonderful. I'm the comprehensives and UWM and the other 2-year ones and the extension. That's where my focus is. I'm not going to do harm to Madison. Don't misunderstand me. And I realized when I was saying this earlier today, I had red on. So I'm glad my friend didn't see me because I promised her I'd never wear red. But so I guess I'm out here learning because you are gems. You have so much unique things to offer our kids and our non-traditional students on each of the campuses. And I want to remind myself of that. I visited everything in my former life, all of the campuses except Green Bay and my hometown area with Parkside, which developed after I left. So you can tell how old I am. But because it started in 68. Tell me, what are you frustrated about with the system? What do you think I should know about lacrosse? That's what I would really love to hear from you. So this is a test. Yeah, I want answers. So who's got an idea that can share with me? And if you don't want to share it, my email is mfarrow, small case, 2402@yahoo.com. Send it to me. Because I think we have got to somehow, this hasn't been a good year for the university system. I sat on the sidelines watching all the publicity that went on, starting just about a year ago with the HR stuff. And then into the surplus stuff. I think I've got that timetable. And I was reading it in the paper or hearing it on TV, never thinking I was going to have a role at one end or the other. And I think the problem is from this point on, we have to sell to everyone out there, your future students, your present students, the parents of both, the businesses that you can help enrich with your graduates, with your ideas is bringing the riches of the knowledge of the university out to our private sector. But nobody understands you because for so many years you've been the ivory tower academicians and you spoke a different language. It's not going to work anymore because we have to tell them what real stuff happens on campuses. We have to justify, it's an awful word to have to use, but we have to justify the existence of our great universities by reminding people with human stories, with individual examples, with using their language of the real world, not of your terminologies and things. We've got to make this opportunity. If you've got something that's just going so well in your area of expertise, you've got students flying right out the door with such preparation, such success coming right out of their pores. You've got to get hold of it. I don't know who it is on your campus, but you've got to get hold of your communications people. You've got to say, we've got a story to tell here, and we can tell it in a real person, showing what's happening on this campus. They're not going to find it. We don't have journalists hammering on the chancellor or anyone else's door here saying, tell us some good news today. Now, if you had somebody run into a library with a gun, oh my God, they'd be here with television cameras. You almost want to stage, I shouldn't say this, you want to stage something and say, while you're here, you might want to see this. I mean, seriously, do you see how desperate I feel we are to get the word out about what's going on campus? And so I guess the more I'm listening and the more I've gone around, and you're my 10th school to visit, so and this is since July, I am anxious to be reacquainted. And it's just making me, as you can tell, a lot more excited. But we've got to get all of them excited. You've got a governor and a legislature who, thanks to now President Ray Cross, is trusting again. I sat at an audit committee hearing last week in Madison when it was the posters in the rotunda, and we were showing the step-by-step or incremental advancement of our incentive economic grants that we put out earlier in the year. We had a report on those in one of the committee rooms. Well, then somebody tapped me and said, we're having the joint audit committee is going to review the audit that came out, coming out of the HR and all of that. We really would love it if you'd come and listen. Well, that's my old stamping grounds. I was 14 years in the legislature. And so I went. I saw people I served with who last year were, spitting fire at the university, listening to President Cross, reacting and questioning the rest of the administrative staff that was there, believing, trusting, hoping with him it's going to be okay. So we're in an awful good room right now. I mean, we have a chance, and the president has a chance to make things happen in a very positive way. And what we need from every one of the comprehensives and UWM, we need that bolstering. We need that continued proof.
Regent Farrell, this is our new faculty and instructional academic staff seminar, and I suspect there may be one or two people in the room who don't quite know what a regent does. So I wonder if you could give us some
Get excited about the system.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Which is good.
Okay.
And that's what we want. But I think there may be a few people who might not want to ask you that question, so I'm going to ask.
Well, how many of you came here from else other than Wisconsin? Oh, you have to stay. I love, there's something now that you're not going to be allowed out. No, I'm kidding. That's what I say to the kids when they tell me where they're from. No, I mean, I'm thrilled. Welcome to Wisconsin to begin with. So I'm glad you're here. Okay, regents there's 18. There's 2 ex officio. One is from the technical school side, and one is the Department of Public Instruction head, Tony Evers. And they are with us because of the other role that they have. The other 16 are appointed by the governor with the approval of the Senate, and for 7-year terms. That's like a prison sentence almost. What do you get appointed to you get elected to some of the courts for 10 years, but 7-year appointment. And I'm going, oh my God. Anyway, and now I'm so excited. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time to do everything I want to do. The point is, we are diverse. Right now, until our group was appointed last June, July, the Governor Doyle's appointees had sway of the majority of the votes from all the people he had appointed while he was there. Well, and then as Wisconsin always flips, a couple of years this party, a couple of years that party. We're a purple state, as you've probably heard it described to you. And now we've got Governor Walker, who has now last Friday, he announced the new appointments. With our group last year, he came into the majority. Now he has appointed more of the 18 than came from Governor Doyle's time, and he just appointed 4 new ones. And their hearing was today at the Senate committee, and the last day of the Senate session for the year is next Tuesday, and everybody's hoping that everybody cooperates and smiles at everybody and votes them on so they will be with us. Fascinating, varied background. Each of us brings something very different to the job. We have the former retired state auditor from the Legislative Audit Bureau. She knows how to look at numbers. She came in with me. And the fellow from the technical school districts boards, who is with his real life, his other life is with TDS, the cable network. company. And so you've got people with all sorts of background. Many lawyers are there, and they're leaving. The governor, the previous governor, appointed a number of lawyers, among others. And so some of them are leaving, but in a nice way that I've overlapped with a number of them and learned from their history. And some of them, whatever. I don't know if you can double up because some of them have been there for more than 7 years. So what we're asked to do is look at the systems business. And by the system, I mean the administrative arm that oversees what goes on by the chapter in the state law, what it does and what it should do and what it can't do. And basically, we meet just about every other month. We meet, 9 times. How many times? 10 times. And 2 of them are one-day meetings, and the other 8 are 2-day meetings. And we are in Madison, and then we're out at a campus, and then we're in Madison, and then we're out at a campus. We're always in Milwaukee for the June meeting, as I understand it and recall. We'll be in River Falls in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the 10th and 11th, I think it is, of April. We'll be having our 2-day meeting at River Falls, which gives us a great chance otherwise to see the campuses. And we look at everything. Now everything, because up until last year, they didn't look meeting to meeting at anything fiscal. And they would approve a budget, and then that would be it. And some who have been on the board were somewhat shocked when they got to the meeting, and there was nothing mentioned of where are we at in the life of the budget. Have we got some spots we've spent too much of that we may have to move some money from? We never do that. We never knew that. Now the new president has guaranteed us that we will quarterly see the status of fiscal affairs for the system, which means what is directed out to you, but what the system also has to do. And he has assured us that it will not have to be read and translated for us by a CPA. In other words, he's going to try to put it again in the language of the users, as I'm asking you to sing your praises as you get to know what your students and your field of expertise here in this institution. Make sure you're talking in their language, not your language. I hired a kid once who was brilliant. He came to my staff and started writing constituent letters, and I would hand them back to him, absolutely amazed at his vocabulary and impressed with it. But I'd say, Mike, you got to dial it down a bit, because I don't want my constituents having to run to a dictionary to understand what you just said to them. And so and I don't mean to demean the intelligence of our general public, but they only want to give it this much attention. They don't want to read it as though it were some treatise on something. So I'm asking you, to share that load with us, to share that responsibility with us of telling your story. So we will hear from. We've had some great opportunities at the Regents. We've had Jeffrey Immelt, the head of GE, came and spoke to us, compelling us to focus on the STEM group of subjects, because he said we're not graduating enough engineers, and we are concerned about economic development. Let's face it, the healthier the economy of the state is, the better people will be able to afford the educations they want to afford, and they won't complain, about the cost of them as much. And it's just fascinating to me. So we also choose the leaders. All the chancellors are reviewed by shared governance within the institution. You may in your career here someday be asked to serve on one of these search and screen committees, they're called. There are 18 people from around the whole system. And 18 of them just picked the 5 finalists out of all the applicants for our new president of the system, who turned out to be Ray Cross. That process is handed over then to a selection committee, which is system people and Board of Regent members. I was on that one. I'm also on the one for the chancellor replacement for the chancellor at Stout. I'm on the one for the chancellor replacement at Green Bay. And I don't know if anybody heard, but UWM lost their chancellor today. He went to Chancellor Lovell went to Marquette. I should be thrilled, shouldn't I? Because I told you I was a Marquette grad. I'm sick because I think Chancellor Lovell was doing just a fantastic job at UWM, which isn't the easiest place because it's should have a strength in applied research, which he's bringing it into so beautifully with the companies in Milwaukee. And I'm going, now what do we do? So anyway, there's challenges. And so it's that type of change of personnel that we have the responsibility. We just had also this screening committee and then the selection committee for the new position of Vice President of Communications for the system, the whole system. It's a new position in this regard, trying to make sure all of your messages are out and that you know what the system's trying to do to strengthen everybody in a better way. And so in this case, it was interesting because we didn't make the final selection. We handed in verbal communications with President Cross our opinions of the candidates. It's his number one, right at his right hand, his linked shoulder to shoulder almost person who at times will have to speak for him, at times will have to know him well enough to carry on the message and the commitment he's making. So we just told him what our opinions were of who we thought he should be looking at of the 5, and he's making that final decision. I'm assuming, but I shouldn't because he has such a full plate, that decision would be made before our regent meeting on the 10th and 11th. So we do the budget, as I say, but now we're going to do it in a quarterly way, which I'm very pleased about. We also hear reports on all of the campuses. They're evaluated annually just in terms of here's what's happening, here's what, weaknesses that the campus and the system is looking to help and shore up in terms of personnel or programs or whatever. One of our committees is the student appeals. If the student has an appeal on campus, there are several steps to go through, and then the final one is to come to the Board of Regents. And I'm on that one, and we presently have an appeal before us right now from a student in one of the comprehensives. The other things we look at are the research and economic development side of the university. I'm on that committee, and that one is focused on how we enrich the state. And it was that committee that set up the selection committee that all the campuses in very quick order were asked to work with each other campuses, work with their private sector partners or find partners in their communities, and then put forward proposals for incentive grants for economic development. And the more collaboration and the more length of life to these programs, that was given much credit. And then that was brought to a final, the selection committee where a bunch of people, some former regents who volunteered to be on it. I just had to admire the job they did because we had 36 grant proposals come in. It was like overnight because this was put together very quickly. It came out of the governor's budget. And we put our money of the systems with the Wisconsin Economic Development Committee who matched our money. And we, I think, chose 16. I'm not sure. I'm on thin ice here. And
one from UWL. So
yes. Yes. And one of them used 4 campuses working together on nurses' education, not the nurses' education, the teacher of nurses' education, for the instructor side, to make sure we have instructors in the classroom as we continue to need more nurses to graduate. And a number of very interesting ones, and we just had a report on those. So that is one of the things, that READY committee, and there hadn't been a new committee formed on the board. I don't know how many years I was told when we were told about the formation of this one. There's a business and finance committee. I'm on that one, and it basically looks at, not as much as you'd like, but it looks at a lot of the business contracts and things that we have to agree to, salaries, things of that type that have to be approved by the Board of Regents. So it comes to that committee. Then from the problems of last year, we've created a new audit committee, separate standing audit committee, and we have created a new position of auditor of the system, and we're still hiring that person, but that person will have a direct solid line report to the president and to the committee that is enhancing that role in terms of seeing the operation of the system. It's kind of all the behind the scenes things. We don't have colors, we don't have alumni, we don't have things to go rah-rah about. We're kind of the nitty-gritty day-to-day running of it. And it's something I'm finding absolutely interesting, far beyond what I would have thought. And yet it's all about the kids. It's all about the students. It's all about you trying to completely facilitate and inspire their education. And so we look at numbers, we look at enrollments, we look at all of the above. What am I missing?
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think that's excellent context for people. Thank you.
Okay, and you can't hide when you're on the Board of Regents. There's too much to do. You can't say, give him that job or give her that job. Somebody's got to, step up. And fortunately, as I said earlier, we have such a diverse number of people in terms of their backgrounds. The fellow who's just been appointed just retired from heading the ATC, the American Transmission Company, that was formed by statute requirement because of federal law requirement that all the power plants, the power companies in the state had to fund this position, proportional to their amount of, revenue or something. I don't remember that element of it. And it was formed as a separate standing entity. And the fellow who they chose to hire had been with with We Energies, the large one in the southeastern part of the state. He's a Cuban immigrant who, with his family, immigrated here from Cuba when he was 14 years old to Chicago. Worked his way through school with a huge amount of grit, and ended up getting an electrical engineering degree from Marquette after starting school in Chicago. And I happen to know him, and his name is Jose Delgado. Oh, my word, there couldn't be a better appointment. He not only is a great businessman, knows the state, but he's also passionate about higher education and has been on a whole bunch of studies, where business people get frustrated, so then they say, let's have a group of us get together and get to the bottom of this. Well, he's been on those, and with the sincerity of wanting to strengthen the whole thing, and then comes away with the frustrations you run into and the solutions you run into. I mean, he and I have had 2 conversations already, and his jets are on already. I'm surprised he hasn't left hasn't taken off. And he wanted to come today with me and join me in this, because I really am concerned that I'm here alone, that everybody's having to have lunch with me all alone. So I would like to double up with people, because it enriches the conversation and I talk too much. And as they found out at noon. But he had to be in Madison for his hearing before the Senate committee. Then you've got another appointment of a young woman, everybody's young to me. She probably, I don't know what, she's in her 40s, whatever. A black woman from Milwaukee, heads the African American Chamber of Commerce, but has been in nonprofit work prior to that. Sharp, pleasant, intelligent, and I was thrilled. Eve Hall is her name. I just thrilled to hear that he appointed her. Again, with the same interests. She comes from Milwaukee. She knows the issues of the education, K-12 education issues there and all. The student regent, there's always a student regent, someone who takes it on, and it's a job. I'm amazed they can handle it. And the student regent is a young woman from here, the brand new one. She's coming on. And I haven't met her yet. We've traded emails, and I haven't had a chance to meet her yet. And then there's a non-traditional student appointment, and that one was made. We don't know if they got it onto the schedule for the hearing today. And that is a fella, former Marine. You can't say former Marine because they're always Marines. A Marine. And he's, I think, about 26 years old and back at school. And a lot of experience in life. Several tours in Afghanistan, has seen more of life than probably most of us ever will. And so he is going to be the non-traditional student. And so it's a fascinating group of people. My sense was they've always been too hidden. You almost have to know the secret password to get in the door. And it's not that way at all. It's just that they're on the 18th floor of this tall building in the middle of the huge campus, where it shouldn't be, in my opinion, because that's why it becomes identified. And my friend thought I was going to Madison. It's only there by accident. I mean, it's not there by the focus or the priority of its time, trust me. And I'd love to have us out in the middle of Portage or Oconomowoc or up here somewhere not near one of the other schools, so that it's seen as a separate standing responsibility over the whole thing. To more clarify our role, not to make us special, trust me. people will say to me, okay, you've been senator, you've been this, what do we call you now? Now you're regent. And I said, I'm Margaret, just like I always was. I don't like titles. But the point is, we are here, we are doing what we're doing at the request of the governor on behalf of, I would say, first, the students. And secondly, the rest of the world, the taxpayers, you who have chosen to make this your profession. I have learned something. I learned something at every campus I go to, so I have to tell you the big secret I learned this morning, right out of the starting block. First meeting I had, I learned something I didn't know, and am I glad I learned it. I found out that any of your children don't get a tuition break when you're affiliated with this school or any of our schools. I'm shocked. I am just shocked. Now, I'm a conservative when it comes to economics. Trust me, I'm a conservative, period. But I'm a conservative when it comes to economics. So as a legislator, my immediate reaction is, I need a fiscal note on that. In other words, you ask the Fiscal Bureau to talk to the universities and find out how many kids their faculty have in school somewhere, and then how much would it cost the university system and therefore the state to let them have a break in tuition. I'm going to have someone ask that question. I am shocked that you don't have a tuition break. That's all I can say. I mean, because didn't know that didn't happen. So I had this huge education today, as you're all finding out. And the chancellor and the provost know that I don't, as a newbie, I'm not quiet at meetings because I don't have time to waste, And so I guess that's where I'm at. So now you've been here, what, is this your first year, your first semester? Tell me how long you've been here. Shake your head, first year? Okay. A lot of you are first year. Some of you just fell off whatever the plane or anything and came in the door. Okay. What's your reaction? What do you want to know about what I should or shouldn't be doing or the state law requires me to do or not do? Where'd your students? See, if you had this happened in your classroom, you wouldn't be happy. Somebody's got to say something. Even I answered all the questions? I can't believe that. This is amazing.
I'm shocked too. This has never happened before.
You don't have to, be that respectful of old age. Come on, shoot at me.
And we'll have the media on here if someone's shooting at you.
Yeah, right. I use these wrong verbs. I really do. Although it's funny, you'll have to know in the interviews with the communications people, the word kept going, we see the system at a crossroads. And everybody thought that was a clever use of the president's name, Gray Cross. And interesting, I want you to know, of the 5, 2 of them never mentioned students in the interview. And to me, there's a few litmus tests. What are you coming to an academic place for if you don't, even though you're in the system administration and you're supposedly far away from students, so you're right on the top of all the madding crowd in Madison, the students ought to be primary. And that's what I keep, wanting you to understand. Your stories about students are gold. Now we have to figure out how to mint them. Seriously. To get the story out.
I will follow the provost's lead, and I suspect it would only be human nature that not only the newer people, but people who've been here a while are concerned about their compensation. That's only natural, and we know that we are losing ground in terms of our competitiveness with other institutions, and we do a lot to attract these great people to come here, and we want them to stay. What's your perception? I know you're a newer regent, not newest.
Yeah, I was a freshman. I guess now when they get approved next week, I'm a sophomore.
That's right.
I'm in the second. I'm past the.
What in the time that you've been on the board and you've heard a little bit about that issue? And this is amazing because the legislators will be the ones who will be instrumental in addressing the compensation issue, so it from that side of the story as well.
Absolutely.
What do you think? Please?
Well, I guess that's why I was really talking about it indirectly when I was talking about you've got to sell the value of the institution and your value to the general public, because the legislators are reacting to their constituents, and their constituents are saying, they don't teach in summer, and they've only 2 courses a semester, and I read a book called Prof Scam, and it said they don't do anything. you've got to convince them. You have to re-educate them. You've got to educate your students, and then you've got to educate all of those naysayers out here, just by your dedication and your example and your translation to them of what you're doing. And because I've got education up the guru, my background, I have a husband, I have a son, I have a daughter-in-law, I have everybody who's in higher education. And with that experience, and I've grown with them to understand what it really means and how much goes on for the students outside of the classroom. I would say probably 75% of the people, even parents of students, don't know that. 75% of the people in the state don't. It's going to be a hard road. I mean, there was a time now, I was told, because I wasn't reading the budget, the state budget is a 2-year budget. It will start again this coming, well, it's going to be in drafting in July to September. And then everybody gets a review of it, and the departments are asked in the state level. And it gets to the legislature when the governor introduces it no. He'll talk about it late this year, the end of 14. It will be introduced by him in the beginning of 15, and it's a 2-year budget. It'll be for the rest of 15, all of 16, and into half of 17, because it's a fiscal year, so we end on June 30th. So he is already drafting it in his mind, and some of his people are. The departments are being told what they're going to do. It's going to be a no increased budget to an extent, because we've had this huge deficit. We had an enormous deficit when he came in at what will be 4 years ago. He miraculously, because I was there with a governor who had a high budget, a high fiscal deficit, and he didn't find a way to solve it. And we lost, but anyway, in our budget. So it's not going to be a generous budget. The sad thing is, when this budget that we're living under now, that goes on for a bit, when it was introduced and started a year ago, January, it was probably one of the best budgets for this university, as it's been told to me by people inside the university, not the legislature. They'd say anything. And I love them. I abuse them with how I talk about them. But it was the governor's proposals helped the university in just about every way you could imagine. One of the few things that it retained was this economic incentive grant. That was in the original budget, and that was retained. But when everything blew up about the HR benefits that were not properly handled, and what was it, 34 million that were paid that shouldn't have been paid, and they're trying to get some of it back to people who no longer were at the university, or spouses who were no longer with the spouse that was working at the university, all sorts of things. No bookkeeping was kept up to date and tidy and neat and responsible. And then when the surplus pots were found around the university and the system, the legislature, knowing that so much was being held back because we were trying to save money with this budget, they totally reacted in a very incendiary way. And they said, the university doesn't know what it's doing. And literally, really, I was quite amazed at how some of the committee meetings were held and what was told to the heads of the university. It wouldn't be what you'd normally see in the hearings in terms of, it was almost like Washington. But anyway, it was nasty. It was very nasty. As a result, the university got a freeze in tuition for 2 years because of the several years of 5% increases that they said in their minds now wasn't needed, because pots of money were accumulated when the former president was saying we need the money. So we have to develop better relations with the legislature. I've already told you it's on its way. If Ray Cross walks in and says this is the budget, and the governor will put the budget in, and then the university is able to react to it and ask for changes within it. Right now, if he can hold the goodwill he's got, and he walks in and looks at every one of those 132 legislators in both houses, 33 senators, 99 assembly, and says, I am telling you, I need a little bit more here and some more here, but I'm making every one of those dollars work, and I am not accumulating them anywhere where they're not even, I don't even know if they were earning interest. It's that kind of trust that's going to have to be developed. I know that there's a group looking at the wages. I know there's sincere effort, and nobody knows better than Ray the need. And I know you all, well, you're here, thank God, even though the pay you came with was probably not the thing. It was a beautiful state, right, that brought you here. But I'm serious. I think any one of us would want to give you your very just due, but then maybe we'll have a little slight disagreement what your just due is. But you all deserve respect. You all deserve that sort of thing. I think personally that if we could get you your, I don't know if I can, and boy am I speaking out of school, if we could get through your, those of you who have children, if we could get you that tuition help, I think that's a huge thing. I really do, from what I've heard and what I learned this morning. So it's a marvelous subject. And I will say to your credit, and probably because you were new, you didn't want to do it, I have been to one or two schools where the nastiness in the room was almost cut with a knife because I was the enemy and they weren't being paid enough. I had that happen only at 2 of the 10 I've been at. I have seen great dedication to the students, to their students. I had a couple universities where it never even came up. But all I heard was, sure, it's not the easiest, best paying job in the world, but it gives me so much satisfaction. I'm here and I'm staying here. I had one fellow walk off with me, giving me a real earful, and he said, this is terrible, blah, 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 but I'm retiring next year. And he was almost as old as me, so I was glad he said that. And, so, that's the variety you have. But I can't tell you that I can get 132 legislators after the governor and all of them together in a room and say, we need more pay. You have to show your worth. And if he decides and they decide this huge budget can include some of that, then you have to make sure if it's Senator Schilling or anyone, that's right, isn't it? Yeah. You got to have them know good things. So if they're charged by their constituents, what did you do that for? You just gave that stupid university system more money. We got to have something from you that says, well, wait a minute. Do you know what's happening in our schools? I've got an example I'd like to tell you. That's what she needs. That's what they need from you.
I want to really thank you, Regent Farrell, for your passion and for your dedication to us and for giving us so much information, because I think it's really helpful to put into context what the regents do and what we can do as well. And I might
find out we're doing more as I go along, but you got my early in.
I wrote down your email address, so if there are questions, we can certainly make sure that we get those to you and have continue that dialogue. But we really appreciate you coming to our new space, which is our campus.
This is
one more thing. Her grandson goes to school here in biology.
The Chancellor's right. He loved it so much he graduated and came back to graduate school. And he's in the water issues in biology. And he was chipping ice to get to his stream for his instruments all winter. So it's been an interesting challenge. But thank you. And I wish you so much good fortune ahead with your students for their sake and with your own lives and your own development. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.